I want people to think about implementation of AI like you're following a recipe for something that's really tricky to cook. I want to emphasize the need for a bit of detail when there is a desire to have the perfect sourdough loaf. That perfect sourdough loaf of bread tastes delicious. We all want it. I love making sourdough. But do you know it takes a lot of time? And it takes the ability to have a couple balls of dough that are just hard balls of dough that you just can't eat. Where in the flow of the experience are we integrating AI and why? Why did I put it here? Does it need to be a half a cup instead of a full cup?
Welcome to the Dwayne Kerrigan podcast, and I'm your host, Dwayne Kerrigan. With 35 years in business and close to 30 ventures across 12 industries, I've seen a lot. Amid the celebrity allure of entrepreneurship, many exceptional entrepreneurs remain shadowed. Here, I team up with these hidden talents to unveil their challenges and successes. Dive in with me to unearth entrepreneurial gems, learn from our experiences, and get educated. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you didn't catch the first part of this episode, go back to last week, take a listen. Here's the second piece. We hope that you guys are getting everything that you need out of these conversations. We appreciate you tuning in and listening and sharing and subscribing and all that kind of stuff. Thanks so much, guys. Have an amazing day and week, and we will chat with you soon. Enjoy.
And it's okay to keep growing. And it's just your opportunity to stretch again. And it's just your opportunity to decide, what do I want to be next? How lucky am I that I have gotten to say, what do I want to be when I grow up? And got to change those things and hit those things and then do it again. I feel pretty lucky.
So a couple thoughts. Achievers use the word stress to replace the word fear. And now in this new kind of day and age, like there's always these buzzwords, and now we're using this buzzword imposter syndrome, which really imposter syndrome is, the real, meaning behind imposter syndrome is, am I enough? And if I'm not enough, like people's two greatest fears are, am I enough? And if I'm not enough, will I be loved? And so, just for people who are listening to that, like when you're framing, and because we like to, minimize the emotion so that we don't have to we protect ourselves. 2 million-year-old brain. We used to be hunted by tigers and whatever, and we are always looking for what is fearful and what we need to protect ourselves from. So like we're just hardwired for millions and millions and millions of years to look like that. So we try to make things, well, we often will make them bigger than they are, but we want to protect ourselves from them. And so we try to shelter. And so a lot of times, like language is a way to shelter and make things smaller. And so we reframe it as imposter syndrome. But when really the background is the fear, and which you actually just illustrated, because, you're like, well, post after the fact, and you're like, your body and your emotions and how you shared that was like, oh, like it was like you were releasing something. It was really actually beautiful. And you were like, I was alone. And then you used the word, and I was sad. And so I thought it was really great. So thank you for your vulnerability, because that share is what people really need to hear. But you also, so I just wanted to like highlight that for people, because it's okay to feel like you're an imposter. Like we all feel that way, but it's really not an imposter syndrome. Just don't make it something that it's not. It's like, hey, you have a level of fear, and that's okay, because it's something new, and you're stretching yourself and you're growing, and it's okay to be fearful. There's nothing wrong with being fearful. That, there's no judgment around it other than the judgment that you put on yourself. And so, just caution people to be careful with that, because, it's like anything, you hold too much emotion inside, it's going to come out some way. And so the better let it out earlier than later, because it usually comes out worse. But I was really interested also, like you said, I have this ability to move on, and I kind of resonate with that a little bit. Like, I don't remember like fights or arguments, or, I really literally do not have, I couldn't think of one person that I could say like I hate. Like it just, I just don't carry that emotion. Where did that come from? That ability to move on? Because I think it's a skill set sometimes. Maybe we get introduced to it, but we then hone it as a muscle. And I'm curious, like, where that showed up for you and how you've been able to hone it over time, because I think that'd be really helpful for listeners.
Yeah, that's a really, like, talk about a deep question. I think that's a big one, right? I think you're right. I think it's a muscle. I think you kind of get exposed to it. You decide, how am I going to run with this in my life or not? I would attribute it for me probably just in my interpersonal relationships. Again, I'm a patterns person, and I can see in a group, like, who are the popular people, who are the not. And I would say, before I feel like I've kind of made more of a successful mark in business, I was very quiet and very reserved and spent a lot of time watching and learning. And I'll often, in something new, I'm always the one to jump in. I will jump off the cliff, by the way. That is me. But I will watch to see how other people jump the cliff too. Or I will see how other people are standing back and observing, and then I'll make some decisions about what I'm going to do. I think in life, recognizing, like, you know what? I'm not going to wait to be the most popular person to do what I want. I'm not going to wait to be the smartest person to do what I want. I'm not going to wait and let any of that fear stop me from doing something that I want to try, because by trying it is how I'm going to learn whether or not I'm good at it or not, and whether I want to keep doing it. So I think this idea of fear and stopping you from being who you want to be in life, or doing what you want to do in life, shouldn't be about, like, I have to achieve this and then I do that. You have to be able to move on from something. And whether it's an argument, or whether it's a meeting and you didn't get your way, or whether it's, like, I always tell my kids, like, when I'm running or I'm biking, it's 10 more steps. And I think about that all the time at work, or when I am route running, or I am on my bike. When I was learning to mountain bike, someone always told me, don't get off your bike when you're going up the hill when it's really hard until you've counted to 10 and done 10 more pedal strokes. And I've taken that with me over and over again in my life. It's always 10 more steps. Because if you're willing to go 10 steps of uncertainty when you feel like you really need to stop, but you're going to push for 10 more seconds, 10 more of something, you are going to get so much further ahead of somebody else who did get off, or was too busy judging, or too busy coming up with an excuse or reason why you couldn't do something. You get further ahead in life if you say, you know what, I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna just try a little bit harder and just see what happens.
That is like really good advice for people out there listening. Like, don't get off the bike until you've pedaled 10 more times. I really, really, really love that. Because it's easy to get off the bike, right? Like,
Totally.
it's so freaking easy. There's, all the short term pain, all the pain goes away and all the short term benefits appear. But the problem is the long term stuff that you're really striving for, you never get. And so, yeah, that's awesome. 10 more, 10 more pedals it was, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I have two girls, and my eldest is, I would say, getting into this teenage world, and we're developing definitely a new relationship. And I hear myself saying that to her a lot as well. If you're, whatever situation you're dealing with at school, your interpersonal dynamics, anything, it's 10 more. Just try 10 more. What can you do 10 more of? Can you try again at your math questions? Is there 10 more minutes you can do at this? Is there another try, another subject, another something? And I think I mean, hey, I'm no parenting expert by any means, just trying my best here. Sometimes it wins, sometimes it doesn't. But when you apply that attitude of, like, well, is there something else that we can just try a little bit longer in a different way, or take those 10 more steps up the hill when it's hard? What would that look like? And how would that change something? It actually really reframes a conversation really well too, especially if there's friction points in your conversation. What would happen if you thought about that?
I'm just curious, on the daughter side of things, how old is she?
12 and 9. So my 12-year
Okay,
old,
so
yes,
12 year.
is turning
Yeah,
teenager.
yeah. 12 turning 27.
Yeah.
Uh, how does that resonate with her? Like, how is it? Like, I'm just out of curiosity. I'm curious. Like, how did you implement that with her? Implement's probably not the right word, but like, how did you instigate that whole conversation, and how's it progressing? And what age do you kind of introduce that? And
I've been saying that to them all along. I'm very, whether I get this right or wrong, the one, piece that I really, the hill that I'm going to stand on or die on is helping them with that growth mindset. And to me, they will be successful in life as long as I've helped them understand that it's about that ability to kind of push a little bit further, harder when things aren't working, and trying to figure out what a solution can be and how can you move ahead with something without that level of perfection. I mean, if they can say to themselves, mommy said 10 more steps, and they say to that to themselves when they're 30 or 40, wherever they are, I am confident that they will be successful in their life, whatever they're doing. Because that to me is the goal that I'd like them to walk away with, I hope.
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I hate, like, I don't consider like parenting advice. Like, people are like, what advice do you have? I'm like, I don't have any advice. I have examples.
Mm.
And every single one of those examples is like, I always say, it's like, don't focus on the right or wrong of parenting. Just focus on making just enough money that they can hire a psychiatrist to help them with all the things you screwed them up on.
Totally. I say the same thing. I'm going to screw them up in some way. I just
Oh,
hope that I can help them
100%.
get to the
Yeah,
help they need.
absolutely. That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But is that why we're both entrepreneurs? And I'm so curious where they will end up. And I obviously want to be very careful and mindful not to say to them, I want you to be this, I want you to be that. But if if I, as an experiment, as a parent, because certainly my relationship with my parents is not the same as what I'm trying to aspire. I think we're always aspiring to do better for our children, right? We want something more for them. But if the mentality there is that growth mindset as terms of what we want for them, and say that deems that successful, I'm so curious whether they'll end up being entrepreneurs themselves, or whether they're not going to look for that and they're going to look for that more traditional role.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a big conversation, because who knows when they get older, in 10 or 15, 20 years, what's things going to even look like? Like, what is society going to look like? I mean, we're advancing on some crazy times here in the future, but I always look at it like, for me, and this is just obviously an example, is just creating optionality. I love the concept of growth mindset, and I think it's absolutely true. And it's just, for me, it's, the kids, or people, not even kids, not even my kids, like, people got to find their own path. And the power is to have options. One choice is no choice, two choices is a dilemma, and three or more choices gives us options. And so if we can really be able to create resourcefulness, which then leads to optionality, blended with whatever that is, growth. Like, for us, we had three culture points in our family. I traveled a tremendous amount when my son was, man, 8 years old, 8, 9 years old. My wife and I, Tennille, we were on the road 50% of the time. And we were like, man, we don't want to be seagull parents when we come back. I was, had a ex-wife at the time. She was amazing at flexing the schedule. And we kind of created three culture points. Pursue excellence, be part of the solution, and show others you care. And if you live on those three kind of pillars, you're going to cover not all of it, but you're going to cover most of it. And that was kind of our example. Take it or leave it, whatever. But but then we actually turned those into our corporate culture principles. It started in our family, and then we added, in the company, we added a fourth culture principle, which is train, train, train. And
Mm.
so, um, I think that, um, really, if you can just keep the doors open as possible, I mean, that's all you can do, right? But
I don't know. I love it, but I love that you took something, some values that you wanted to instill in your family, and you're so passionate about your work that you've integrated the same things there. I mean, that really speaks to your authenticity.
yeah, look, I mean, for me, our business is our family. Um, like this is what I do, right? It's all I've ever done. And and I love the people that work for us. And I love our teams, our management teams, our executive teams. I'm it's like being a dad of a bigger extended family. I don't get it right. I don't get it near right. As a matter of fact, I probably screw it up way more than I do get it right. But I always lead from the heart. And I can remember growing up, and oh, man, my mom was like tough. I don't like she was over the top tough, and I'm probably I don't think I lead as tough as she did, but I'm certainly tough. And but I look back, from my 55-year-old self to the 14-year-old boy or 12 or 8 or whatever age I was, and I look at the things that pissed me off when I was that age, when my mom or even my dad did or said like pushed us. And I look back at 55 and go, oh my God. And both my parents have passed. And that's really like amplified this over the last few years. And I look back and go, God, if my mother wasn't, if she wasn't the person that she was, I wouldn't be the man I am today. And so that drives me consistently to help grow the families that we have in our business, and yeah, they may not like it. And I've had lots of tough, like really tough conversations with people, but they're honest and they're genuine and I'm having the conversations because I care. If you don't care, you don't have the conversation because it's not worth your time or it's not worth your energy. It's not worth your focus or your effort. And so people who, I mean, not to say that they don't care, but they don't care at the level or whatever it is, then people will, or if they have a fear, they'll move away from having those conversations. But if your care overrides your fear, then you'll have the conversation. I was lucky. I had a mother that led by example. Well, and a mom and a dad, but my mom was really tough. Everybody will say that. And that's, kind of the place I come from when it comes to that. So that's why it was obvious to us, like when we created these for our son at the time, and we went, man, like this is a fit for our teams because we consider them family. Like it's and that, with 500 of them, it'd be like having 500 kids, right? You can't nurture all of them. You can only nurture the ones that are really, really close, but you hope that filters down through the organization, and you try to build the right training or systems or processes or whatever. And ultimately, it's kind of why I started the podcast. It's like so we can have conversations like this, that it's like, hey, we're talking about business, and like it's and then we break off into this conversation, and maybe one person listens to it and goes, oh man, like wow, that really resonates for me. And so anyways.
Okay, well, I just have to say, like, this is why I appreciate you, and I'm sure listeners would agree with me just for a moment. Podcasts that say and share real stories from the heart of what it's actually like to be a leader or an entrepreneur or to take risks. Those are so authentic and I think rare. And Dwayne, I think you are doing a huge service to more than just your family and your company, but to the world. We're all doing this because we want to make an impact somehow. And it's so incredible that you're sharing real emotion and real stories for people so that it's that same authenticity piece of us all understanding that sometimes this stuff's really hard and real and there's emotions behind all of this stuff, but we're all doing it for a reason because we're trying at the end of the day to make the world a better place in the way that we can do it. So thank you.
Look, it's not me. This is not, and I'm not saying that to belittle like anything that I'm doing or whatever, but what it really is the collaboration between, it's this collaboration, this conversation, this moment, this time. This is wherever whatever you want to call it, fate, grace, universe, God, whatever, it shows up in a moment and takes a conversation in a way. And so that's why, I love having guests on. Like, I didn't start this conversation, you started the conversation, you're the one that started talking about your kids. This is more about you than it is about me, because of what you shared with your 9 and 12-year-old daughter, and 10 more steps. And those are the things, that I agree with you. It's like sharing our stories with people in a way that's open and vulnerable is key. And we don't see enough of that in business. We don't, we tend to go, oh, and we were all raised on this. Well, keep your personal life separate from your business life. Don't bring your problems into work and all that bullshit. It's like fucking bullshit. It's, you can't do that. I'm not saying you should be crying in the bathroom. Like, I'm not a promote. I don't promote that either, but it's like emotion shows up. Emotion is natural. And so, being open and being vulnerable and sharing is what it also is what builds teams.
It absolutely builds teams. And we haven't got into that part, but in terms of like, how do you build a group of people that that is basically a family, because we should be so intertwined and believing in what we're doing at the core of what our business is. For that business to be successful, we as an executive team need to be aligned there, but also being able, like you said, you disseminate it within the processes within an organization. And that's the power of effective leadership. It's not at the top saying, this is what we all are going to do, this is my vision, this is what. No, it's about how did we have that conversation at the water cooler or in the hallway or somewhere where we touched somebody in a way that helped them feel inspired, that helped them inspire somebody else. And that trickle effect is really what I think true, like a great workplace culture is.
Yeah, well, and I would throw that back to you. Like, how do you do it? I know how some of the things I do it, and we're actually we've committed in 2026 to do a lot more teaching. I'm actually may record it this week for next year, but strategies on building A teams and like well, I shouldn't say A teams, high performance teams. But I'm curious what your nuggets are in terms of building that culture, building those teams.
Oh, I feel like that's a big conversation. I think we talked a little bit about in terms of that authenticity piece of the teams, and then different points of view on a team is so incredible. But what I think is really helpful that we don't always have to or think about is scale and size. And what company sizes have everybody worked at? Do you find, or I found, when you have conversations with people who have worked in a company that's thousands of people versus a conversation with someone who's worked in a company that's like 75 people, they're their perspectives on work culture and teamwork and leadership are very different. What do you think?
I've never worked I don't have the experience you have, to be honest with you. I've never worked in a company with thousands of people. That to me, that to me is, I've not had that lived experience. So I'm flipping that question back to you.
Okay. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about perspective. And I think that perspective is a critical piece that sometimes looping back into education isn't something that we always think about. And having the ability to think about perspective, someone else's point of view when coming up with a conversation, is so critical. And one that I find that if you've only ever worked in one size organization, you haven't had the perspective of somebody who hasn't. And just like you said, oh, I haven't had that experience working in a large organization. It is different. But there are some people who will spend their entire lives only ever working in very large institutions and thinking that that's success, which is fine. That's their journey in life. That's okay. But the way they're going to learn to work through a problem, identify things, implement, is going to be very different than the person who has worked in an organization with like 75 people, like I said, right? And they're a 75-person organization. You basically know everybody. They're all touch points at some point. Everybody knows, their kids' names. There's usually like this culture that's so different than what you can't create in these barriers that kind of exist, funnels
Like the
almost within
silos, you
large
mean? Like the
organizations, the
silos
silos
of
that
a
I'm
big
trying to, yeah.
organization? Yep.
Yeah, and in silos in organizations there, and you're trying to, they always say, "Oh, we're trying to break these down," but you never really do. I mean, it's too big. You can't not. It just is what it is. But understanding that that perspective is different and the way we're going to deal with it is important. And I like to create a team that has different people's experiences from those different sized organizations, because that's how you get sometimes there's a bit more friction, sure, but there's willingness to see different points of view because you're going to solve problems different ways. And sometimes you need the scrappier startup solution, but sometimes you need the formal structural solution also. So I do think you need both.
I like that. I mean, it's a really interesting concept actually to hire people that come from those diverse backgrounds, like from a size wise. I actually never thought about that. That's a really good idea, actually. I'm curious. Well, and because inside that you had talked about like solving problems and breaking through things, and to me, like where you're at right now in the in procedure flow, like you guys are seems to me solving some like probably face and consistently solving problems on a regular basis for organizations. And I'm curious, like when you talk, like, because it's not even just um, working in your team and developing your team, but now you have to integrate your team with a whole nother team, your customer. And a lot of times that doesn't get done well, and it doesn't, and sometimes it doesn't even get done. Sometimes it's just like, hey, you know, we're a provider and that's where we live, and they don't make the connection of being a provider versus maybe another word would be partner. And so I'm curious, like from the aspect of like building your team and the culture there, and then integrating it and fitting it and partnering with, because I'm sure you guys do that a lot.
Yeah, procedure flow is my new what do I want to be when I grow up? Because it is a bit of a new direction for me personally. And it was an opportunity to get involved in a growth stage organization that I think is solving a crucial problem today that not all organizations have really thought about yet. And so this is why I was kind of intrigued to join them. And what we're doing there is it's a B2B play. So that in essence, just in terms of leadership and corporate stuff for me is new, and I'm loving the new way of learning in that area, like a B2B strategy. But what they're doing, because every organization now is throwing AI on top of everything,
Mm.
right? AI is the new answer for everything. It's what every VP has in their budget line, that they need to be able to say, yes, we've integrated AI. Every strategist is saying we need to have this in our organization in order for us to be innovative and to solve tomorrow's problems. Now we have AI. And then there's this thing called ROI that is starting to creep up, is that all of these really large companies have all integrated AI, but they aren't necessarily creating the return on investment that I think originally perhaps people were expecting. And interesting, it's just actually very similar to trading in a way. They thought that, let's say from a contact center point of view, if you put in chatbot, so I'm, let's say I forgot my pin and I need to call the bank because I don't remember what it is. I have to reset it. This is something that I'm hopefully doesn't just happen to me, damn it, because I forget mine all the time. So you call in and you're like, okay, I need to talk to a customer service rep because I need to reset my PIN. And then I don't know about you, but I get really annoyed with, how they like cycle the same message over and over again. You need this, you need this. So now what's happening, this is just one example, you get an AI person, a virtual agent, and they're responding with what they think is the answer you're looking for. But what do I really want? I actually really want to talk to a person, because at this point I'm so frustrated with the cycle of which I've gone through, and I really just want to change my PIN. And someone keeps repeating the same thing over and over again about what I should do, and I should go to the website. Like the customer service there is just not great. So what's happened is a lot of these organizations who think they thought, oh, I could have less staff, I can have higher efficiency, I can have greater better speed to solving customer problems through AI, has actually realized, no, it's actually created more chaos for me. This isn't actually something that people want, because people still want people. And that because this is the way it is at this point, I do still need to make some changes, because what we still have in AI today also is they make things up, right? AI isn't that smart yet. Maybe if you talk to a futurist and there's, if you talk to some people, AI is ruling the world in the future, and maybe that's the case. I don't know. But for today, AI actually isn't adopting the ROI that a lot of people thought it would. So, what our company does, what ProcedureFlow is doing today, is kind of taking it a step back in the B2B space and making sure that all of your SOPs, the structure, the step by step process that Dwayne needed to answer to say, this is step one that you need to do to reset your pin. This is step two to reset your pin. And this is step three, is actually put in place correctly. So that way, if whether it's an AI or it's a human that is answering my phone call when I'm like, hey, I don't know my credit card, you actually are, as a customer, getting the answer you're looking for that's correct. And you're not upset about it. And you're actually getting it in an efficient way. So it's retraining how we're using what was an original AI strategy. So in essence, I mean, we're doing a lot more than that, but like that, I think is the root of what it is. It's taking how internal information supports customers, and our tool is helping whether you have an AI or the other person to make sure that that's organized, that's accurate, and that actually gets the customer the information they're looking for.
So, but would the future goal not to have, would it not be to have a person doing it and having an AI executing it like an actual avatar, like a simulated human avatar rather than a chat bot? Like chatbots are, I don't call customer services. I don't get like I don't deal with my bank. I don't deal with any of that shit. Like it's that kind of stuff does frustrate me to no end, and so I just have structured the organization that does not fall in my kind of pool of responsibility. Like I'm curious on a whole bunch of this stuff because you guys are in it with this AI implementation, and you know what, to me it starts with all the SOPs, all the procedures. Like some human has to create those. You can get an AI to help you, but ultimately a human is in charge of it. They're responsible for it. AI is supporting and augmenting some of the workflow or some of the thinking, but ultimately it's a human that's creating all these things. And correct me if I'm wrong on any of these, but the creation of those SOPs, procedures, policies, whatever, all the information that you guys gather, then can be used. It can be used by a human now, augmented a little bit by AI. And as AI develops, should it not, it would not be the goal, or is that not almost the, the, the pie in the sky kind of place we get to, that, I can call up and have an integrated conversation with an AI avatar that speaks my language and understands me as a client profile over time, and is able to execute the task that I'm requesting it to execute.
Yeah, I think what you're looking at or reflecting on is a future state, and every industry right now today is at very different places. And so what we've had to do is say we'll meet the organization wherever it is. If you're only in humans, and within, you just need employment training, you just need to make sure that all those processes are in place, you can use our tool to do that. But if you're using AI, and there's even agentic AI, like we can keep going even further here, then you can use the tool for that. But that's what the cool thing about AI is. Like, let's just put ProcedureFlow down for a second and just say, like, what's happening in our industry. We are seeing fundamental changes in so many areas of business today. But what's interesting is that not everyone's moving at the same rate. Every industry is actually at a very different starting off point of how they're integrating AI into their experience or into their tools or their products. And I don't think we're having enough conversation there. Like, just as much as you need to diversify your teams or diversify your goals based on what you're projecting and all that stuff, it almost feels like we're talking about AI as like a blanket. It's not a blanket statement. It actually will be used in very different ways by different people for different things, and also based on what that business industry is in. Because the way that, let's say, a doctor might use AI is going to be very different than, let's say, a bank might use AI.
So I would love to dig into this a little bit deeper because I think it's really it's fascinating, but there's some underlying things that I believe are playing around in the background, which are number one, if AI does be able to, execute and not make shit up and be able to do the things that the futurists claim that it can do, it will revolutionize kind of how we function as the human race. Almost, really, it's going to change a lot of stuff. And if it doesn't, to your point about the ROI, um, we are embarking on, like, there's more money flowing into AI
Yep.
and creating energy for AI. And if for whatever reason, I don't know what they'd be, but for whatever reason, it can't produce the return on investment, you're you're probably looking at like the biggest rollover in the markets that we'll probably ever see. I mean, because there's just so much money. The whole stock market, the S&P, is being propped up by the Mag 7. The Mag 7 is being driven by AI right now. And it would be in, my hallucination would be that we would, if it doesn't, is it not be able to produce the ROI, that's going to be a cataclysmic, what is that, the right word, the cataclysmic rollover in the markets.
Yeah, well, I'd say I don't think there is any going back. Like that this has already been unleashed and we're already going in this direction whether we want to or not. And different industries are adapting this at different points of time, but it's happening. Like there is no what if it happens in the future. It is now.
Yeah, no, 100%. Totally agree with that.
Yeah.
But at what level? So tell me how, at what level can a business implement agentic AI workflows from your experience and what you guys are, dealing with right now?
Well, it really depends where the business is at. And also sometimes there's a bit of a difference between what a CEO or VP feels that the organization needs and then what maybe a director or someone who has a little more hands-on experience of how you would actually utilize that AI. So talking about critical or challenging conversations, sometimes the operational piece of just that conversation of what a higher leader believes AI should be and then like what they actually need are sometimes something that we just first need to support that organization to get them to a starting place that they will see some steps to ROI. Same with trading. You can't go into something and say, I'm going to make $1 million tomorrow and I'm going to put it all down on this and tomorrow it's going to win it all. Sometimes there's that mentality with AI also because it's that idea of like, I need to get on the bus too. I'm too late on this one. I need to get in now. So I'm going to put it everywhere. Where can we put it? Right. So, first off, industries need to stop for a moment and really be very critical of like what are my goals for this year, what am I trying to achieve, and by using AI what am I actually looking to structure to make improvements and efficiencies in my business. There should be a real reason why are you doing this, not just because it's cool and because your competitor is doing it, but what's the reason that you're really looking for, what's your outcome. So step one is to identify that outcome that you're really looking for. Then step two is to really think about, okay, now what's the steps? What are the processes that I need to get in place in order to make sure that this agentic level, this level I want to get to, is actually going to be something that the business really needs. And again, it's not because I want to say, hey, I'm look how innovative I am. I have AI happening in my department, but like what's the goal? What's the reason? And really, that conversation right there, I just said it in less than 30 seconds. That can actually be that planning process is what's the the important baseline knowledge questions that actually generally brings up a lot of other information, because a lot of times when you're having that conversation, all those structures, all those SOPs, all that paper, all the stuff has actually kind of been sitting generally in somebody's drawer or is sitting with a few subject matter experts within the organization, actually hasn't been updated in a very long time. So when someone is trying to get over here, usually you have to back up the bus a little bit and just make sure that everything is actually structured well so that we can have that experience. And what's happened, I think now, because everybody has integrated a little bit, like for a while, it was like AI was this cool, shiny thing. And if you went to a conference, a couple people would be talking about it. Everybody aspired to have it. Then what you're seeing, let's say this year, especially in the conference front in multiple industries, is that everyone is saying they put it in And now they're evaluating the ROI part of it. Did it really help? Was this really worth it? And now I think people are actually taking this step back. So what's exciting today is that because the practical conversations are happening now, where there's a bit of learning, a bit of lessons, a bit of backing up a little bit, I'm excited for when they start moving forward again with a little more experience, to actually implement things in a way that because customers need to be ready for it also, right? Like, it's one thing to say I'm looking for an efficiency within my organization, I want to reduce some headcount or whatever your goal is. But if your customer isn't ready for that kind of experience, then that's something we need to be mindful for too. But you can hear it happening in our lives. Like, we're not talking about Googling things anymore. We're now talking about going to ChatGPT. That is a huge shift in how we're taking everyday knowledge today and beginning to consume something new to learn.
What I'm hearing and from conversations that I've had with people is like they start to invest, they get on the boat a little bit early, and then they realize like, oh shit, nobody brought the food, nobody's where's the life
Yeah.
jackets, where's the
Yeah.
cooler, like, and they
Yeah.
just kind of get there and go, shit, we didn't really think this out, and so then as a result, there's no or little ROI, and so then there's backpedaling, and then so I'm curious what strategies do you for those people who have not, most of the people listening to this podcast are kind of like a 1 million to 40 million type of business, and they may have some, you know they may have, I mean, everybody, like you said earlier, everybody's at a different stage, but for those who have not dug in and started spending the money and gotten into AI, or for those who have and are experiencing the, oh shit, we're not getting a return on investment, we need to roll this back, because everybody is like jumping on the bandwagon, trying to, the ones who are like, I feel like sometimes the ones who are promoting this like online and on social media and all that kind of stuff are all the ones that have something to sell. They're trying to, get people early into the game, and again, they're not really producing an ROI for people. What are some of the strategies that you would recommend that people kind of utilize to, beyond the why are we doing it? Okay, they've done that. What is the goal? Okay, we got the goal. And how do we actually create a strategy around implementation?
I want people to think about implementation of AI like you're following a recipe for something that's really tricky to cook. And I'm trying to kind of come up with something that's really like life based because I want to emphasize the need for a bit of detail when there is a desire to have the perfect sourdough loaf of bread. That perfect sourdough loaf of bread tastes delicious. We all want it. I love making sourdough. But do you know it takes a lot of time? And it takes the ability to have a couple balls of dough that are just hard balls of dough that you just can't eat. And I make that analogy because this is the part that people aren't doing. They need to sit down in that meeting and say, look, I'm trying to integrate AI. Well, let's say you have done it and you say, and you're seeing your NPS scores in a contact center and you're saying, this is not produced what I think it was. You don't want to throw out, it's not about throwing out AI. It's not about not doing it all, but it's about saying, what critical steps here did I miss? Where in the flow of the experience are we integrating AI? Why and why? Why did I put it here? Does it need to be a half a cup instead of a full cup? Was there a way that I can pull this back and reintegrate it with a real question about how this is going to support something? Because and I say that because when taking people through these conversations, the amount of times I will just start with a very simple question and the room goes silent. It happens more than you think because I think everybody else thought, well, they told me that was a great idea. And nobody really wants to be like, I didn't actually think about those detailed pieces to put it all together in the first place and the reason why we did it. And I know it sounds so cliche, but just forcing that conversation, earlier I talked about critical conversations. Do you know how uncomfortable it is in a room, but how necessary it is sometimes as a leader to pose a really hard question and then to stay silent? And to stay silent even further when nobody else in the room actually even says anything because they're really looking for you to give them the answer, but you refuse to. You have to keep staying silent until it's awkward because you really need them to force the critical thinking here. about how are we going to do this now? What are we really going to do here? Because I tried to go mountain biking when I really should have started on a tricycle.
So with that, what what are the what are the pitfalls? Like where are people going to get stuck on this? Where are they going to invest money that they're going to lose or not get a return on? I'm just like I'm trying like I really want to have the listener like take away a solid strategy for their thinking about what it is that they need to really consider going forward this year in 2026 to implementing or considering their implementation of AI.
So I think I'm having an honest hard time answering it because I know of the range of what everybody is doing or trying to do. What one company is trying to do with AI is very different. And at the risk of, I mean, of course, I want to say like that's what ProcedureFlow does, but I'm trying
You,
not to because I don't want to say that. I want people to know that like I'm here because I genuinely want to have the conversation about the need to understand that whatever process you're going to feed into AI, whatever it is, whether it's we're talking contact center because you've decided as a company that you're going to put your AI out there, yeah, as a virtual assistant, or you're another company that's going to say, you know what, I'm going to put AI into my level one of training. So when someone comes on board and they need some steps, AI is going to answer those questions for me. Or whether you're into like operating procedures of opening and closing a wallet on the back end of a trade, right? Like there's just so many. I guess I'm having a hard time because the use cases for AI is so different. Where people are at is so different. So it's hard for me, I think, to give like a broad. I'm trying to think of something because I really want to do that for you.
what
I
about
don't I don't know how to answer it, I guess.
yeah, no, and so really that I've got to really hone the proper question, and that's why I kind of framed it that way was so, which is very helpful what you just said for me. And maybe the question looks like or sounds like something like in, and I don't think it's a bad thing to say procedure flow. Like at procedure flow, like these are the kind of core concepts that we work on. There's no problem with that. Like you work at procedure flow. I'm going to ask you how people can find you anyways at the end of the podcast. So I'm really open to, it's not like you're like, whether it's not a pitch, it's a, hey, this is where we're at and this is what we're currently doing. And I can give you my frame, like I can only give you the perspective from the place that I'm currently at. And this is what we're kind of doing. And we can do it through a generalization and just warn people like, hey, this is a generalization, but here's the things to consider when implementing AI, bang 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 bang. Or we can also take some examples and say, hey, if you're looking to enhance your customer service through AI, this is what could be available to you. This is how you would implement it. It's like, I know that for us in our organization, like we haven't implemented any actual like agentic workflows yet because I am afraid of making a miss on the return on investment. That's a direct cost and you never get that back. And so I think entrepreneurs have to be really, really cognizant, especially if you're in the small business phase, because like if you're a 1 to 10 million and you go drop a whole bunch of money, that's your whole year's profitability. And you're really gambling it on, it's like literally going to Vegas and gambling. Oh, I'm going to go like, I'm going to put my money on black. I hope this shit works. Like, because it's so new. And so I really want entrepreneurs to be prepared, educated, um, but also cautious in their approach to how they implement AI. And so like, I'm like our strategy, sorry, that's what I was mentioning was like our strategy right now is we are collecting data more than what we've ever collected before. And maybe that's similar to what procedure flow is doing as well, but like we're recording sales calls at a level like we've never recorded them before, and then we're putting them into ChatGPT we've got our own ChatGPT, which I don't think is AI in your company. Like you're, it's just a tool. Like I think a lot of people go, yeah, we're an AI. We got a ChatGPT and we use it all the time. It's like, yeah, that's not really like, that's not really AI. It's AI, but it's not impacting the workflows of your business. But I think what does impact your workflows, or at least this is the bet we're making. And so when I say what I think, it's only like what I think. It's not an expert opinion by any stretch. Um, but we are like taking this data and we're plugging it in. So like the spreadsheets that we make, the tracking, the communication with customers or internal or everything we did a lot of things in our businesses that were like, okay, yeah, we do this. Like everybody knows like, okay, this is how we do this. But it's not in an SOP. So everything is we're just spending time creating SOPs and new procedure flows so that we can dump this into an AI platform like ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever it is that, Grok and whatever anybody uses. And so that when we get educated enough and prepared enough and feel like we know enough of, your three, I'm going to call them three pillars, the don't, and I don't know. Like once we get through that kind of thinking level, then we can invest in an AI that is, agentic in nature and actually creates a proper workflow that is not going to lie to us and not going to make shit up and all that kind of stuff. And so, but I don't truthfully know if we're doing the right thing. Like sometimes I also have those same feelings as an entrepreneur or business owner, that especially as the leader of the business is it's like, you know, should we be invested in, should we be investing into a, customer service, AI platform? Like some of the roles that we have in our companies, we're offshoring them so that we can free up the, bigger thinking people to spend time on some of these SOPs and strategies and digging into partnerships with our customers and, raising the level of our game so that we can be prepared and start doing the studying at a low investment, low risk cost. Anyways, that's my dissertation on basically what we're doing. But I'll be honest with you, I don't even know if it's right.
Well, I can say that what you've just described, and maybe this is where there's the difference is those, a lot of organizations haven't done that. And when I talk about they haven't had the return on investment, what you've just mentioned is what they've skipped. And at ProcedureFlow, it's usually what we need to take people back to work on those corrections so that there is some efficiencies moving forward. And that piece that I think is so critical with AI in terms of its implementation is to make sure that there is well documented, well governed SOPs, procedures, processes, all of those pieces are first in place. And what's happened is that many organizations have just jumped over that entirely. And they did that a year ago or 2 years ago. And they invested in AI. And then it's a problem. And it's trying to pull a band aid off of something to come back to where you need to go. And the willingness to do the work of which you're doing today, many organizations haven't done because they jumped on the hype at the beginning. So, in a lot of ways, you actually have some really key learnings there of pieces that are so critical, and it sounds so simple, but it's so important by making sure that the things you do in your organizations, the step-by-step processes, when someone comes on board, what are they doing? What do they need to do during the day? If there's an emergency, if there's a hazard, if there's something, like regardless of what you are, you have that documented. There is a place for that. That is actually updated. A lot of times that's not. So at ProcedureFlow, what we do is take people through that process first, evaluating, assessing where they're at, auditing those pieces. Then what we can do is put it into our tool, which actually creates visual flows by taking all the Word documents, creating visual flows. And if the organization is just there, that's all they need, then you can stop there with ProcedureFlow. You're good. If you need to, if you're ready, if your innovation strategy is there in terms of all that's already done, you already have that piece in place, and now you're ready to move into what, like a full implementation of AI, then ProcedureFlow can meet you at that stage. But what's so important is what's actually what we've been doing a lot is pulling back companies into where they need to go to just then make sure you move forward in the long run without trying to skip. Because what's happened and what happens sometimes, or even back into investing, let's say you get into a stock and you buy it and it goes down, it goes the opposite direction you want. What do people most often do? A lot of times, especially in options, people will panic and get out and then they've lost all their money, or they're going to pile more and more and more in. They're not looking to solve the problem. What they want to do is bury the problem. And what's in AI and what's happening as you're burying and burying and burying this, it's amplifying and amplifying the problem. So you can't stuff it away. It doesn't fit in a drawer right now because it's overflowing. And the more you push it, the more it's going to come back because the knowledge keeps amplifying that's wrong, or the governance that wasn't there, or it just makes it up for you, or you have like pretty poor customer experience, whatever the spectrum is that you're utilizing AI, whether it's for your customers externally, B2B, or even B2C, your strategy. Like retail is an industry, by the way, that is, in my opinion, far ahead with their AI strategies than some of these maybe more like industrial unionized environments of how they've been able to embrace AI within their organizations and how they even think about implementing it. And that's the thing, like this AI world, like it's so crazy because we can start by having a conversation about one thing, but it instantly becomes everything. I mean, it's just exploding at so many places. So always just coming back to like, what's your business? What's your business? What are you doing? How do you make money? And is it that you make money by lowering your cost, or do you make money by selling a more expensive product, increasing the volume? Those pivotal pieces are so essential to be able to answer before you integrate an AI strategy into whatever you're doing, because it will certainly amplify things that are going wrong. It's not going to turn a wrong business into a right business.
So it's a really good, I mean, make some really good points there. And I want to frame for the listener the reason why I wanted to have you on the show was because you come with this massive, diverse background. You know, if you just map out the background, it's like you've spent so much time in training and education and then in finance, like you get it. You get how markets move, you get how emotion works, you get all that stuff. And now you're with ProcedureFlow, and for me it's like, hey, like, who do I trust? Like, we met in YPO. You were part of my YPO chapter up in Toronto when I was there, and so there's a trust there. So it's like, hey, if you're a company that needs to do kind of what we're doing and what I framed out, and you haven't done it, you need to do it. And so your options are, you do it internally, and there's multiple options inside there how that happens, and or you do it externally, and there's some options there too. And so you've got many more than just two options, but there's kind of it's the choice of internal versus external. And if this is not a commercial for ProcedureFlow or a promotion for Sarah, but I trust you, and I know you, and I know you're going to do well by people, and you're going to help them because you care. And that to me is important. And it's important to frame this conversation because this is where, like you said, and you didn't use these words, these are my words, but the train's left the station. Like, there's no rewinding AI. And you can't get on the bus super late stages because you're going to get screwed. So somehow, like I said, like, I'm looking to move forward in a way that is going to maximize my potential to make a better decision in the future, but be prepared today in order to take action on it. Like, we're investing money in collecting our own data, and we're trying to compartmentalize it and put it into the boxes that it needs to be in, and all that kind of stuff. And I believe, I'm just saying what I believe. I'm not saying it's right, but that is one of the first steps. And that's what you guys do. So you made a comment. So sorry, that's a lot of me talking, which I don't like to do here on a podcast. So, but you made a conversation about like you collect data and then you create visual flows. But explain to me exactly what a visual flow is, because I don't think I really kind of have, I can make assumptions, but I'd rather know.
Yeah, so that's what our tool does in essence is takes Word documents, pages and pages, and we have different symbols. And those symbols represent things, whether they're an action, it's a question, or just information. It will be in visual boxes. And it reduces the content and brings it right back down into a nice visual flow that somebody can easily read, easily understand. So it's the same thing with trading. It was like this to me spoke to me because it was about taking something complicated, making it simple, actionable, something that somebody can actually do something with, that you can repeat over and over again. That is something that is actually very applicable in an organization to find efficiencies. Now, and I mean, this tool has been around for 10 years. So, but 10 years ago, we weren't talking about AI, and ProcedureFlow was still helping organizations because they were just doing that, just the visual flows, helping to organize. Now, there's a whole other layer now that's now added in this business since I've been part of it, which is that integration of AI, because that's really the next stage in terms of knowledge governance or knowledge management in organizations. But what AI has done is amplified the need for an organization like ProcedureFlow. Like you need a tool like that. And in the same way, like if you were an entrepreneur, and I remember this, and this was back when I was still owning a business, we talked about a CRM. And what the heck was a CRM? Why did you need a CRM? Why do we need to manage emails? What the heck's that for? No business would run without a CRM today. None. They're absolutely essential to be able to track. At the time, it was tracking information like emails and habits. Today, I believe that ProcedureFlow is the same idea as what a CRM was back then. It is so essential as we move forward into AI to make sure that all of those internal communication pieces or your SOPs or whatever we're talking about is actually organized, documented, visually represented, something that people can actually use before you jump into AI. Or if you happen to be ready with all that stuff, then it's ready to go in AI too. But I think it's just going to become the name in the future, just as we all of course you'd invest in a CRM if you opened a business today. I think 10 years from now, we'll look back and you'll need ProcedureFlow in the same way.
And
that's my assumption.
Yeah. And so just so I have clarity around this. So ProcedureFlow, like I get the piece where it takes all the information, you create the visual flows, and then as it applies to the AI and the agentic side of AI and the workflows, are you guys creating like actual agentic workflows for certain? Yeah. So, and in what areas do you provide those? Like customer service? Is it finance? Is it sales? Like I'd love to find an agentic AI that can take our inquiry calls for our companies and have conversations and lead the customer to the next level rather than a chat bot, right? We do it on chat. We have chat bot, whatever. It's a tool, but I would love to be able to train an AI on basically they say this, AI says this, and they walk the customer through the process to the point where it sets an appointment or whatever.
Yeah, and if you have the visual backbone already, then it's actually easier as you move into that agentic piece for it actually to do it correctly. And so this is very innovative stuff. And so within any organization, you have your backbone, what we do, and then we have the piece that we're pushing the envelope on. And we're pushing the envelope over here in AI agentic for exactly what you've just mentioned. And it actually can create its own. So AI now can create within ProcedureFlow, can create those processes for you of what you should be doing. But this is where we're at that disruptive creative edge also, and currently coming out with new versions and extensions of this as every part of this is growing in terms of businesses also. And that's where the exciting stuff is, because how cool is that? Is that really, it's going to make huge impacts on businesses once we really get that going and implemented. But right now, I'd say that's at its early stages in terms of its like real implementation in organizations.
Yeah, interesting. What do you like? So, which does lead me to the next. Like, where do you see the speed of this happening? Like, how do you have insight, or what are your insights on what could be in a year, 2 years, 3 years? Where could we be? Like, I always go, I'm like, man, I wish I had a Jarvis like Iron Man where I can like, and I think we'll get there. I do actually think we'll get there. I don't know if it'll be, fully that way, but we'll get there eventually. We may get to the point where, we all have a Neuralink and, who knows? But I'm curious, like, how far out can you see and what is it? What might it look like?
Well, my perspective on this is that life is never going to be the same. We have now shifted, just as we had the Industrial Revolution, and that shifted the way we worked, we behaved, all of our cultural, like everything changed then. I think this is the same thing, except for it's not like it just started today. It's already been happening, except for now I think we're at the critical mass where everybody is seeing its impact in everything we're doing, but we're just at the cusp of that part. So I think it's becoming so normal now that we are integrating AI in all sorts of areas in our lives, whether we want to or not. And sometimes whether we even realize it's there or it's not. Because it's in all sorts of process flows in organizations that you just might get the package received at your door and had no idea that there was AI integration in that experience of you receiving that package or that order, or whether your website experience. Like, it's just so massive. So it's hard to explain. I don't know. I listen to a lot of podcasts also and try to listen to a lot of strategists, and you hear the extremes, right? You hear the dangers and where this could go in terms of how it's going to change our whole human race. And then you hear of the side of content and how that's going to affect how we learn and our knowledge, and the worries there about what does that mean for us as a society and culture if we're only ever hearing some kind of one-sided point of view, that we never get an objection, right? And then we have somewhere in the middle. And all I can say is, I think it's 10 more steps. It's us embracing the ability to go forward into something that we don't really know how. I don't think we know how to control this. I really don't. It's been unleashed. It's been unleashed in all sorts of different industries. It's going to go. And it's about us recognizing those patterns, understanding what our strengths are, and knowing how we can make sure we're leveraging this to help us. Because the way we work today will never be the same. I think the way we learn and grow will never be the same. The way that we physically learn about, if you think of it like healthcare, like it's just crazy what we're going to be in the future. And I think it's going to happen faster than we think. So what I'm not doing is going to create a prediction of a 2027 we're going to be here, 2028 we're going to be there, because I think it's all going to be in front of us faster than we realize.
Yeah, I think it's scaling so quickly, right? It's probably smart of you to not like predict. I love that. Yeah, it's 10 steps, 10 more steps. When do you think, like, for example, we're on Amazon and we're looking for a product, and the AI starts to look at what you're searching, and and then they say, hey, like, it looks like this is the right fit for you. Would you like me to order it? And it'll have the ability to just actually order it to, yep, send it to my home, send it to the business, whatever, and then it just does it. Like, like, do you think that's nearby?
Gosh, I hope not. That would make our lives pretty boring and we'd be pretty lazy, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I don't know, but it seems a lot of like it would simplify my life a lot. I mean,
But would you want it to? I also think like I want to push a little bit on that. I think we all talk about these like grandiose ideas of us helping it. It's going to create all these things that are great. But there's so much in life in our decisions that's fun. It's fun researching things and making a risk. And, do I try this sweater in this color? Is this really going to look great? Was this a bad idea? Those I hope for us that we don't lose that stuff. Because what do we talk about then? What happens to our humanity if all of the stuff that we feel like causes stress suddenly disappears? So I hope there's some of it. I do believe that there's still elements of the human being is going to come back around. And we can't be trying to control or shape the universe moving forward. But I do believe, like, how is AI going to learn to give us a hug when we need it? To really look someone in the eye and have real compassion and empathy, I'm not sure that AI will ever do that well. And I do think there's still human elements to who we are that it will still be very relevant moving forward that I hope we don't lose. And I hope in our desire to make life easy, we don't forget about sometimes some of the challenges are what makes life fun.
Yeah, see, and I mean, I'm aligned with that. But I look at it and think to myself, I don't fear AI. I mean, I think that you look, humanity is an impressive force, and it's been with us since the dawn of time, and we have figured it out to this day. And like you look back at history, like the printing press, the TV, the this, the that. Like everybody thought the TV was going to be the turn of kids, and what are they going to do, and oh my god, they're going to change. And then you know the internet and social media, there's no question it's impacted, probably obviously greater than TV had. But I'm a believer in it, in humanity, and I think that people are pure and in the most part honest, and I think we'll do the right thing overall. um, but the on the utilization of AI, I actually think that the utilization of AI, like whether I decide to buy a shirt, like look, I mean, I'm a very pragmatic person. I have this exact same shirt in my drawer, and there's 20 of them, and there's two blues, two black, two white, two brown, two whatever. Like, and to me, the reason why I do that is like my life is so busy and it's so full. I don't have time to be doing those kinds of things, because I prioritize my time to be spent with my wife or my children, or my friends, and connecting. And I think actually AI actually augments our ability to connect and do exactly what you just said, is get a hug, be vulnerable, have conversations, have time to have people over for more dinners and more connectivity and all that kind of stuff. Because if I don't have to waste time, like I was on AI last, or I was on Amazon for like 30 minutes or 40 minutes researching something, and the whole time I'm like, Jesus Murphy, I could be doing something that connects me with others versus by myself on a computer. And so to me, I just believe that AI is going to help us actually connect more to our human element. But that's but who knows? I don't know. It's just my hope. It's I don't really know that. I have a belief and a hope that that's where it brings us. But
I hope so. I hope it takes us out of some of the individuality that I think social media creates for us, right? Because you can get so sucked into it, into that social media world of that, scrolling doom. I hope that AI doesn't just create a more attractive version of the doom scroll and actually does provide opportunity for us to go out and do something. But I do think that's on us to make those decisions, because it can also, I don't know about you, but I also find I'm going to start chat GPTing something, and then I just like love to learn, so then I'm researching even more, and I'm going deeper, and then I'm going over to this site, I'm like, well, maybe I should start this, and I actually end up still spending lots of time. I've just gone deeper into a subject matter that I might have just moved off of, but because I'm starting to get information and wanting to learn about it, sometimes I can get sucked into it. So we, I think, have to be still very conscious of how we're using it, why we're using it, so that we don't, I hope that we don't AI doom scroll in the same way we do with some of our other social media channels.
yeah, no, 100%. I mean, it's yeah. To me, I just have this vision of it's like people doom scroll, like they start scrolling on social media because they're looking for something, but if it could
Hmm.
be given to them and they can get the downloaded version, it's like reading a book, right? You read a book because you want some content. Sorry, you read a business book because you're looking for some content. You read a thriller, or whatever, a crime novel, because you want entertainment. Two different reasons, right? So
Hmm.
I don't think that goes away, because we'll always have that thirst for that experience. because that is the human experience. The experience is the human experience. And so I don't think, but maybe it enhances it. It enhances the experience even more. But if I'm looking for like knowledge base, rather than reading a book that's going to take me like 10 hours or 5 hours or whatever the, knowledge based book is, like a business book, I can get that information quicker, faster, so that I can go now and use it and implement it as a human. And that's kind of where I sit with all that stuff. But I just have but I also think too, like, people are going to use it in their own way, their own way that meets their needs. And just like, some people use drugs and some people don't, right? They're meeting their needs through the drugs. Like, they're meeting their needs through alcohol. Some people, go to the gym, and there's different reasons why they go to the gym, because it meets their needs at certain levels. And why is somebody, buy businesses and be an entrepreneur and drive and do all that stuff? Meets their needs, right? It's, we're all going to utilize it differently because we're different people. And that to me, again, gives us optionality and resources. So it's a great conversation there, kiddo.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for sharing, what you're doing, what you've done, your experience, and, the openness and vulnerability. Thank you. It's such a beautiful conversation. Where can people find you, by the way?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn at I am Sarah Potter, and ProcedureFlow.com is a great way to be able to reach out to me.
Awesome.
But I just wanted to kind of finish, Dwayne, by saying one line that I've always lived by, and I hope that other entrepreneurs can grab this, and please feel free to copy it, is the only difference between a dream and a goal is a timeline. And it's really about making sure you're setting goals, but also setting a timeline to make sure that you can achieve whatever it is you want. And I just want to thank you and all the listeners for the opportunity to share like real authentic conversations. Because if I can swear, like, this shit's hard. And it's hard to hear some of this stuff, good and bad. And it's so important that these conversations are here for everybody. So thank you, Dwayne, also.
No, thank you so much. I appreciate that, and appreciate the honesty. And it's true, it is hard. But anything worthwhile is hard. If it's not, it's probably not worthwhile. That's the way I look at it. Anyways, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I appreciate you being with us. If you found value in the show and know a friend or coworker who could benefit from this conversation, please share the link. Each share creates a ripple effect of knowledge and inspiration. And if this podcast has supported you in any way, please support us by clicking the follow or subscribe button.